So moved.
Second.
All right, at 6:30, we'll call the meeting to order, please, with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. Like Mrs. Saxer said, it is finally spring. Yay. Roll call, Mr. Lundberg.
All of them.
Yes.
Schrader.
Yes.
Saxer.
Yes.
Odie and Klatt are absent today.
Mr. Odie was invited to attend an FFA convention potluck tonight, so that is where he is at here at the high school. And Mrs. Klatt had a family award dinner that she needed to be at, so that is where they are tonight. Next, I would entertain, are there any questions on the agenda first? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented tonight, please.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a first and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. No conflict of interest disclosure waiver requests tonight. No community input tonight. So that takes us to our first item under general business, oral reports, the good news report from the middle school with math and marching. You know the drill.
It's my pleasure to introduce three of my staff members who this idea came from the lunch. They eat lunch together, so it came out of the lunchroom. They're super excited about it, and I would like to introduce Molly Ring and Mallory Jark, who are our 7th grade math teachers, and Kelvin Lepesky, who is our band instructor. So, with that being said, there you go. And don't ask Molly how she broke her arm either. Elementary roller skating party.
RBE.
I told the kids a different story, though, so they believe something way cooler. So we teach math, and in our intro class, we were in the geometry section, and one thing that I really struggle with is to make connections with the kids, make it interesting, make it fun, and all littered in our standard says, you know, real life connections, real world connections, and there's only so much you can do out of a story problem. And then in the geometry section, it even said geometric software, and I realized, like, gosh, I don't even know how to do that, you know, there's only so much you can do. So I was at lunch, and I was just kind of throwing a plea up, like, who wants to help me teach translations, dilations, and rotations? And if you have any software, that would be great. And luckily, Calvin stepped in.
So I've been writing marching drills since I was in college. I write for different groups in the area, and you can probably. So after talking with Molly for a little bit, I realized that her unit directly relates to all of the things that I do when I write drill for different groups. And so when we're talking about real life or authentic connections, I thought this was perfect because I was able to go into a math class and tell them I get paid to do this. Worked out great. So what you'll see up here is first is a picture of me showing the students a coordinate chart. This is what all the students in the marching band receive when they go out onto the field to learn drill. And it's also what we use to teach the Brandon Valley Winter Percussion Drill that we started doing this winter. So they got to see a real example of what that would look like. And it's kind of tough to make out, but those are coordinates. So those directly would relate to a coordinate grid, that would relate to what they're working on in the math classroom. And on the right is a picture of the software that I use to write this drill. So I was able to get up in front of the students, had the honor of being in a math room, and show them some of these coordinates, and show them where I start when I write drill, which is, when I was younger, which is on grid paper. I would go online and print out all the little just the grid, and go through and plot out where each student was going to be, and that's what I would send to the groups that had hired me to write their drill. And then it would move on to the software after I figured out how to use it, and then I was able to show them exactly the transformations of the figures that they're working on in their unit, but also exactly what I write for the marchers. And then I showed them a video of the Brandon Valley Winter Percussion where they're able to see the software and then see their fellow students actually perform that drill. So it was a really cool experience to be in there, but also just to show them that kind of progression of what you learn in 7th or 8th grade math and how it can connect to something that you're doing when you're in your 20s as a job.
Okay, so I unfortunately do not have lunch with these two. So Molly actually came up to me and was like, hey, you know, what do you think about this? And we're both very hands-on teachers, and we always like to come up with, you know, different kind of out-of-the-box ideas for different lessons. And so I was like, yep, I'm game. Let's, you know, kind of where do we start with this? Because it was very new to us, and it was just kind of a new concept. So we decided to obviously start with our rubric. And kind of the main, how we set it up was, first of all, what's our objectives with math? What are our standards? What are we getting out of this math-based? That was step number 1, talking about the translations and the dilations and all that good stuff. The second step was then what you see more in projects, things like neatness and creativity and, you know, things that they may not get to do in a typical math classroom every single day. And that's kind of where we started, and you know, obviously this is the first time we've done this, and so I think there's things obviously we would tweak, but overall I think this was a very good guideline, and our kids did a really good job of following it, and they kind of took ownership of it, which was really fun for us to see. You know, they were like really engaged in it, so so that was good for us too. So.
So just to go back to the authenticity of this, this is a student example of them using the grid paper to write drill and show these transformations, but this is literally what it would have looked like when I started writing when I was 20. So I mean, this is a very, very real life example of how it might look to be a drill writer and use pen and paper.
Because as a math teacher, we love the programming, but we want to make sure that they actually understand the standards and they have ownership of it. So when they were writing this, you can see off to the side, they had to write it in translation notation. They were telling me all of the movements and the timing. So they really proved to me that they understood the math and they wanted to do it, which is always great.
And then this is, here we go. So this is the actual program that we use. Obviously, it's a little different than one Calvin uses. He uses obviously a much more complex version. But this was what our kids used, and this was one of my groups, their presentations that they came up with. Again, every time I look at this, I just love it because sometimes it's hard to see that creativity side of them in math. You know, you just don't get to see that every single day. So again, this was fun, and they got to spell out links, and they were extremely proud of that. So that was kind of fun for them to see too.
So after they learn how to read all these drill charts in math class, this is what we're going to do on homecoming at the high school. Get all 1,100 of them out there.
Yeah, and every slide they had to reposition it, and they had to tell about what notation was happening and what translation. So it was very, very cool and very powerful, and they all turned out just fantastic, and that's just one of them.
Probably.
Goes on for a while, but if you want to pause it or keep watching. Yep, and then last slide. Right, yep. That should be just one. So going forward from conception to completion, this was about 9 days, and luckily me and Jark had a common prep, otherwise I don't think we would have been able to complete this. But going forward, we would have loved to had a smoother transition with the weather. They've done this and actually go out onto the field and have them physically move and give them their coordinate planes and have Calvin kind of help us out with that. I think that would have been very powerful. But overall, it just showed us that when you can make those authentic connections and you can bring the outside into the math class, they're going to have a deeper understanding. And so we are definitely going to continue this unit and add on to it because we got a lot of positive feedback and we really enjoyed it. Any questions?
Very nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We'll have to see what the band director decides to teach next year besides math. Just kidding. Thank you. All right, that takes us to administration report, Superintendent Larson.
Yes, thank you. Just have a few brief items for you this evening. Tomorrow evening, we will have our second public meeting for our strategic planning process. That will be held here in the community room at 5:30 p.m. Would certainly invite all of our parents, guardians, and patrons to join us for that session. Want to make everyone aware that Monday, May 7th will be our staff recognition banquet. We celebrate retirements, years of service are recognized, years of service recognition awards are recognized, and then we will be announcing the Brandon Valley School District Teacher of the Year. Little update on our budget preparation and timeline. I would tell you that you've seen the big tickets come across. Additional staffing, preliminary capital outlay budget has been approved, salary, wage, benefits approved. Now we go through the requisition process, and you will see a preliminary budget presentation from Business Manager Lundberg here in late May. And then in July, we will hold our annual budget hearing and seek action on our proposed budget. Would note that May 11th is the deadline for school board petitions. Candidates must file financial interest statements within 15 days of filing the nominating petition. That's a requirement due to our school size. And then I would note that the election will be on June 19th if necessary. A couple items to note: we are in the process of smarter balance testing, or conducting our state assessment. I believe our high school is completed. Overall, we've seen outstanding effort by our students, and we certainly appreciate our students' effort on that assessment and our parents and guardians' support through that process, as that provides us very meaningful, objective student learning data that helps us drive our instruction and curriculum. I would note graduation will be held Sunday, May 20th, 2 p.m., and then we will be having school on April 27th. Our last day is Thursday, March 24th, or May 24th, and that is a 2-hour early dismissal. So that's all I have this evening. Would certainly entertain any questions that the board may have at this time.
Any questions for Superintendent Larson? Hearing none, thank you very much. Next item, we have 2 items under consent approval for under general business. I would entertain a motion to approve those as presented.
So moved.
Second?
There's been a first and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Under personnel, I would entertain a motion to approve items 1 through 18 as presented.
Move to approve personnel items 1 through 18.
Second.
There's been a first and a second. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. One information only, a transfer there for you to look at. I don't see any communications at all here tonight, so that takes us to our board reports. Does anyone have a formal one they'd like to present tonight? I will say from Alternative Ed, we do have our contract with McCrossin approved. That's something we always work on in the spring, but we have some sad news in the fact that our business manager is leaving, so we do have that finance manager position open. If anyone knows of anyone who would be interested, that would be great. Otherwise, any other board reports? Okay, if not, that takes us to needing to enter executive session to discuss personnel under South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-2.1. I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second?
It's been a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 6:44.